It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson with Paddy Fitzsimons, with Ben Johnson and with Rob Gutmann. But we are going to start off with the nature of the main focus. Rob Gutmann is very much a strong exponent of the principle that just because Liverpool aren't playing doesn't mean Liverpool aren't playing. Yesterday was a good example where Liverpool had two games, Rob. Both of them, I think, can be described as obviously not the results we wanted. But the way both games go, it does a little bit. I mean, we watched Villa versus Chelsea, and Chelsea weren't convincing. And you can dress a 6-3 up any way you like. Not least scoring 6 is good. But 6-3 doesn't feel that convincing either, especially having spurned a 4-0 lead to find yourself back at 4-3.
No, I think if this was the City wrap, I think we'd spend most of it slagging off our own side, not least because they're like that anyway. I personally would have been delighted with 6-3. I just like seeing Liverpool score goals, and as a fan, if we'd banged in 6, I don't care. I'll take a 6-5 most weeks. Do you know what I mean? It's a great scoreline. But me and Ben were saying, just being all serious, and me and Ben were saying beforehand that 3-0 would have been worse. You know, from a Liverpool point of view, Ben said it would have sort of demonstrated control. I'm not sure it's either the best scoreline or the worst scoreline from a Liverpool point of view. And in as much as when City raced into that 4-0 lead in 25 minutes, I was turning to my lad and going, at least Leicester are proper shit. You know what I mean? That's the good news in the Bible. You know, that was the only. But when it gets to 4-3, you're going, I do want them to come back. But on the other hand, I do want them to come back badly. Do you know what I mean? And then so they lose 6-3 and then, well, City get their big win. And Leicester and Rodgers gets to make Leicester feel like they've won the FA Cup again. Because he sort of will, won't he? He'll come out and go, you boys, that's the proudest I've ever been. And some of them will believe him. So I'm hard to know where my head's at. As I said to you before, and I think I'm living in a Leicester festival. I think I support Leicester at the moment. They're everywhere. You can't move for Leicester.
Paddy, City, games in hand are rubbish. In the title picture, the wider title picture, we've seen enough of games in hand in our lives to know that I feel as though whenever we're in a title race and our opponents have games in hand, they inevitably win them. And whenever we have games in hand, something goes badly wrong somewhere. So I hate games in hand as a principle around this. But there's no getting away from the fact that City are just very much the team to beat. I think anyone watching Villa versus Chelsea could also come to that conclusion. And yes, Chelsea have got tons of mitigation. But City, to me, look a different class to Chelsea at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not as carried away with City or as worried as a lot of people seem to be. I know quietly they're on about an 8-9 winning streak, aren't they? But yes, I'm not having that to the same side that they were 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not exactly sure how many points you need to win this league. You know, we spoke on the last Friday show about could Chelsea do a 90-plus point title winning season. I'm not quite sure they could because I just don't think they've got it in it to chase down a Liverpool or City getting to that. And I think that showed yesterday. You know, they struggled beating the Villa side. They got the win, but it was very much needed. I think although City, you know, you can't fault them scoring 6 yesterday. I'm still just not entirely convinced by them that we need to be terrified of them. You know, I still think, I know I'm contradicting myself here with them scoring 6 goals yesterday, but I still think there's going to be games where not having a number 9 will catch up to them. I still think, you know, they look a little bit shaky at the back and teams can get at them. And although, yeah, games in hand, you'd much rather points on the board, I'd still back Liverpool. Although, you know, obviously in title races in the past, you know, it hasn't gone in our favour. I'd still back Liverpool to know the task at hand and get games won if they have to and they know what's in front of them. So I'm not too worried about them just yet. You know, if 5 or 6 games down the line they still keep winning, it becomes a problem because you know what, you've seen them pull away around this time of year before, especially last season. I think United were only about 4 or 5 behind them or 6 points behind them in January. We were close this time last year, and then before you know they've won 14 on the bounce and they're away from everyone, and it's all done by February. So that's a little bit of a worry, but at the moment I'm quite relaxed about it. I still think we're just as good, if not better.
They get away with a little bit yesterday, City. Firstly, there's 2 big chances Leicester miss after it goes 5-3, which is a strange sentence to say. The other thing is they're getting away without Fernandinho. With Fernandinho. You know, we talk a lot. We've had a lot of chat about squads and squad depth. Fernandinho looked finished last season. Whenever I've caught him this season, he's looked like he finds it really difficult to play on the turn. he is their second best number 6. There's a lot of chat about what did Liverpool look like if Fabinho's out for a few games, or what do Manchester City look like if Rodri's out for a few games. Now, they've got so many good players, they can all sort of move around. But I think that we, in our heads, what does it look like if Diaz gets a knock for a few games? What does it look like if Cancelo gets a knock for a few games? And I think it's quite an interesting one, this, in general, is that you can decide that City have got unbelievable depth, but there's times where you look at them and, I actually thought our manager was wrong when he was going, and people can't play can't pick two good teams in back-to-back games that close together apart from City. He said, and I thought, well, they've only got about 19. They're a really good 19, don't get me wrong, but they've only got about 19, and that this still remains my City thing, is what does it all of a sudden look like without Rodri, without Bernardo Silva, without Cancelo, without Diaz, and without, say, 2 of these at once. I think they can cover for any one, but they've been fortunate so far they haven't lost 2 at once.
Yeah, I thought Guardiola's quotes were interesting the other day about talking about Liverpool and saying, we're not Liverpool in the way we attack. And again, we're talking about this in the context of them scoring 6 yesterday. But if you look at that as a mad game, you do wonder, if they're worried about Fernandinho, do they stick or twist? Are they good enough to see these games out defensively and say, we'll nick it 1-0? You've seen so far this season, like the games like Southampton at home, Palace at home, where they've not quite been good enough to do that. If they want to sort of be Liverpool 19-20, where they go, we'll score 2 goals and we'll win the game regardless. And then you do wonder about them going forward. Like we've said with the number 9, are they good enough going forward to score 6 every game and win if they're going to concede 3? Are they quite good enough either way, is what I'd say. You've seen Liverpool sort of change this year and adapt, and we look a lot more better going forward than we have done in previous years. And then we've still got, at the back, we've got the best centre-half, 3 of the 4 best centre-halves in the league, in my opinion. With City, you do wonder, if they're worried about a Fernandinho, have they got enough? They've got enough depth, clearly. You can reel off a list of lads. They've got to be really good at football, but whether it be for them positions or not, remains to be seen.
The mad game thing, Ben, I think is interesting, because I think we have a mad game at Tottenham. For loads of reasons, we have a mad game at Tottenham. And this is where, in our mad game against Tottenham, we don't quite attack exactly as we'd like to, but also we have to do a lot more defending, and obviously within there as well, we've lost Van Dijk. They've had their mad game there against Leicester, it finishes 6-3. Apart from that, it's interesting to me because I think they've been attacking a bit better, City, since the last international break. And since the last international break, we got beat 3-2 at West Ham just before it. But since the last international break, I think our defending as a whole team's gone up another level. And I just think it's quite, at the minute, and this is one of the reasons why maybe I am complacent about Chelsea, but I'm looking at City and Liverpool, and I think City and Liverpool have gone up a level last 6 or 7 games in both departments. As I say, a mad game happens every now and again. And I think Chelsea have gone down a level, maybe even down 2 levels. And I think that's why, at the minute, the team to watch is Liverpool. The team to watch is City. Chelsea, they're not quite making up the numbers, but they're not far away from that now.
Yeah, I think it at one point it was a 3-horse race, and I think you're right. I think Liverpool have stepped up since the last international break. We've been attacking well all season, but defensively we just look so much better. The balance is a little bit better. Tottenham's a mad one, it's a bit of an aberration. You hope that's our COVID issue sorted. You hope it's gone through the whole squad. They've all been exposed to it. There's only 4 of them picked it up and out, and now that's it. City haven't really had that. I think they've had one little bit. I think with City, I think Chelsea are having hard lines, but I think they're gonna just peter out. I don't think they've got quite enough to. I don't think they've got quite enough to win every game. And I think whereas the start of the season you were looking at it thinking, this might be one of them seasons where if you get 86 you can win the league. I think what City are doing now...
Well, they're on played 19 and 47, and they've had a bit of a ropey start. And that's, for me, that now tells us that you've got to be the other side of 90. I think you've just got to be the other side of 90.
And I think, they've won 9 on the spin. They look like they're going to win every game, to the point where I don't follow their results, because I just expect them to win. So yesterday I see 4-0. Just pop up on my timeline and think, well, hell, how long's gone? I didn't even know what time is it.
Is it 20? It's not 25 past. City are 4, and it's not 25 past.
No, we the
they kick it off at 2.
What's going on? And then the little thing happens. They get the 3 goals back. I think ultimately with City is if everything carries on going to plan, and I think they'll win every game. I think where City come unstuck is if they have adversity, and then I would question their ability to ride the adversity. Whereas they start going behind, they start having a bit of bad luck. I think the nature of the manager, the nature of his personality, and ergo the nature of his team is that he likes everything his own way. And and when it isn't quite everything going in his way, exactly in his way, he goes a bit mad, a bit erratic. You can see his approach in the Champions League. I think that is him distilled. He overanalyzes everything. He starts thinking about everything. And I think for us, I think our hope of winning the league is them hitting some kinds of adversity, whether that's a COVID diddle, whether that's, you know, they get diddled in the Champions League, whether they get a man sent off. I just think they need to hit a bit of a sticky patch. I think they probably will, and I think it's just about whether we can win all our games. I think you're going to need to get, as you said, north of 90 points to win it. I didn't at the start of the season, but I do now, and I think we look set to be able to do that. At the minute, we look like we're as good as that team that won the league and the team that went 99 points the year before. We look like we can do it. And I think we just need them to come unstuck.
I think there's a bit of role reversal between us and them from last season. If you maybe give or take a week, when we did Palace 7-0, we weren't on a 9-match winning run, but I think we'd won 3 or 4. I think including like smashing Wolves, and we beaten Spurs in that dramatic way. And you know, Guardiola gave that interview, didn't he, on the morning of a City game after our 7-0 against Palace, and he almost conceded the league. Yeah. He almost conceded it, didn't he? And all his words were virtually saying that. And I think, you know, this is the moment for us to have very cool heads and not to be impressed by City. For us, our job is to hang in there, to quietly go about our business, just to win games. We don't have to worry about being fantastic at Leicester or showing that they're shit. I'd like us to do that. I think we can, but I don't care if it's a bit of a crappy one. I think we need to grind, get to the end of January, and not let the 3-point gap have expanded. I think it'll tire City.
Well, City's games are also in. I think we tire City, and I think that there's a chance to do it. Like, I think that the one thing City don't want to do is look around first week of February and go,
no gap.
They're just there still. This is happening again.
Yeah,
I can see that being something which would get internally into City. But I think there's something else, which is it's easy, I think, Rob. You know, obviously we've got to go to Stamford Bridge, so don't get me wrong. That's not going to be a battle of laughs. But I don't like City's next 4. If I was City, Brentford away on a Wednesday night at 8:15 feels like one of those where if City give Brentford a sniff, and they might not do, they might go 4-0 up, and if they go 4-0 up against Brentford, they'll twat them. But it might be that they get to half an hour and it's still 0-0. I don't like that. I don't like Arsenal away at the minute, where they've got something to prove on New Year's Day. That would be, again, it feels like the sort of game where City managed to have a period in the game where they ease away. But if the easing doesn't happen, it's a thing. They've then got Chelsea at home, and Tuchel will treat that like it is the Champions League final, I think. That'll be the biggest game of Tuchel's next however many, including the one against us, weirdly. I think that'll be the one he'll have in the back of his mind. We've got to prove something here because of what happened when they came to our gaff. And even then after that, they've then got Southampton away. And there's every chance again they just smash Southampton. But there's another universe where Southampton are just weird and difficult and horrible to play against. I don't think any of them are nice. And I think they've had a few nice ones recently. And I don't think any, like Leicester at home there, couldn't have been timed better for them. Were any of us surprised they went 4-0 up? I know I wasn't, other than what time it was. I wasn't sort of surprised. You know, I think they've had a few nice ones recently, City. Everton at home, when Everton look an absolute mess. You know, they've had a few in there. Old Trafford away, which when we've gone there and scored 5 and Solskjaer's still there, I think it's actually been an all-right-ish run. But there's, maybe I'm talking myself into it, but I feel there's a bit of a sticky patch coming potentially for them, but they could just power through it because they're that good.
Yeah, no, this is a recurring theme of the award-winning overview show, which we do, don't we, Paddy? And it is the right time to play sides. City have played teams, as you say, who have been tenderised. That United one, I can't believe how much they got more. They got more plaudits for beating United 2-0 than we did for beating United 5-0. I feel when we beat United 5-0, it was all about how shit United were. When City, sorry, I'm just getting really bitter now, aren't I?
I'm enjoying it.
But your point is well made, Neil. I do think Brentford's a difficult one to tell. I'm glad it is, as you said, a night midweek game. I'm glad it comes in the middle of a glut of fixtures. I'm also glad that it's sort of on the edge of the precipice of football being cancelled indefinitely. So Brentford's home ground should be a lively cauldron. It also feels like it's the worst time to be playing a mediocre Arsenal, if you can say that sentence.
And Arsenal's game against Wolves has been called off, so they've got more prep time.
Well, that's excellent. That's even better. I mean, look, we've got to dispatch Leicester, but you sort of feel for all our sort of quiet confidence that we probably do need to go and win at Chelsea. I'm not saying it's all over, or at least match City's result against Arsenal. We can't have slippage that weekend, I think. It'd be nice if City do drop points against Arsenal to go to Chelsea and then push on. But you know what? If we come out of this week not having changed the gap between us, I'm taking that, I think.
Everyone, are we all agreeing it's north of 90 points to win the league?
I think you have to look. So I
feels
think
like it now.
The thing I would describe it as, if City, for instance, let's say we do drop points at Chelsea and then we have a stinker at Crystal Palace.
No, I think they'd run away with it with like high 90s. But if it's neck and neck, would you take 93 now? Low 90s?
For us to get 93?
I think you'd win it with 90.
I'd deal in general for us on 93.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Because yes. I mean, not least because 93, I mean, if you just they're on played 19, if you double 47, it's 94. So they'd have to be as good again in the second half of the season from there. So if you say to me right now, guarantee Liverpool 93, or you can play the games, I'll take me guaranteed 93, and then just watch City's matches aggressively from now until the end of the season. Yeah, I think I'd do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think on the point Rob made before about and Ben about getting in City's head a bit. I think if it was neck and neck with City, I do think they could sort of not fold, but I'd back us if you said it was us and them neck and neck. I'd back us for low 90s. I'm not, like I said before, about thinking how good they are. I'm not convinced they're as good as they were, 2-3 years ago, where it's going to be 98, 97. I think, like you said, if you said now we get 94 points, I'd be confident that that's job done.
I wouldn't be quite as confident as I think you are there.
Really?
Also, it's worth remembering 18-19, it's neck and neck, and they live with us all the way.
I think that goes to my point. I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
As good as and I think if you're saying we get 94, I think you're looking at thinking we might win there. I think if we won there away at the Etihad, that'd be a big thing, wouldn't it? So I don't know. Maybe I've not done my maths well. I don't know. I just can't envisage it being in the high 90s, but maybe it will.
I don't think. I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Because it doesn't seem like it's much, but there is a big difference, I think, between high 90s and low 90s. Like, because it's high 90s from this point is everyone's got to be practically perfect. Anyone who gets high 90s, including City, from this point, you've got to be practically perfect.
Yeah.
It's the remaining. There's 57 points left to play for if you're Manchester City. So to get high 90s at this point, you'd need to get let's clarify, in the high 90s is just even being 95. They need to get 51. Yeah. Sorry, no, they don't. Sorry, that's shit maths. They need to get 48. To get to 98, they need to get 51. So
I don't think two teams will break 90 though. And that's just a gut feeling, really. I don't think two will. I feel the season's got a bit of madness in it, and it is because of the climate, the times we live in, as much as anything. It's that, and also that us and City have done this dance, and things don't tend to be the same. You know what I mean? I don't see us playing out 18-19 again. I think one of us could go mad. We went mad last season, let's be right, with what was happening with the world and with our own heads and what have you. It's possible that it could be City's turn to go mad. There was no reason we should have been the team that went mad. It could have been them. And I think one of the challenges, the two main challenges, could go mad. And just settle on 84, 85.
Which is what I think Chelsea are going to end up doing.
Yeah.
84, I think that Chelsea end up in a unit. The other X factor in this is the Champions League.
Yeah.
Because I think there's, for instance, right now, in a really weird way, I think us and City are well better than Chelsea, but I think Chelsea are favourites to win the Champions League ahead of either of those two. Not least because I think that Chelsea, come March, will be cruising towards the third place finish. Yeah. And be able to put all their eggs in that we make sure we're absolutely shit out for every champion. So we're still having tough league games. We've still got to get results. We're not over the line yet. It's still a graft, but then we're able to go into another gear for Champions League games. That's where I think Chelsea are going to end up being able to be.
I think Tuchel also is quietly quite Benitez, I think, but with better players in the Champions League at any rate. Actually, just generally, he's a defensive coach who wants great attacking players, but he is a defensive coach primarily, and I think that really serves your interest in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think it's right, and I think it's part of the reason why they may struggle to just keep churning out wins every week. In that, when you've got to break down a team, you wouldn't put it this way. It wouldn't surprise you if they drew 3 more games at home 0-0 this season. Chelsea, you'd go, yeah, I can see that, because you're really good setting up when someone wants all the ball, but when they don't want all the ball, can you break them down week on week? I'm not sure whether they can. I think the next few weeks are going to be key, if I'm honest. I think January, I think Rob's point about let's get to the end of Feb and still be within touching distance, within a similar situation as we are now. We'll have dealt with the AFCON, we'll have dealt with possibly grounds being shut and then possibly reopening. You don't know what's what, but that seems like that might happen. If we can get into that position end of Jan, I think once we get through Chelsea, our fixtures don't look
Brentford and Palace
that bad.
Brentford and Palace in the league. That's all.
And
it
then
is.
even February when I was looking ahead, I think
it's then Leicester and Norwich.
It looks a fairly winnable run, and I think if we can get, if we can be in touching distance and we can still be there and we're not going anywhere and we look stronger, and then you throw the Champions League in, which will blow Guardiola's minds every year. It does the same. Then there's a chance. Then
Leicester's team is, for me, it's fascinating where they end up yesterday, Paddy, in terms of selection. They have Amate and Vestergaard as the centre-half options. They have Albrighton at right-back and Thomas at left-back in the first half. That's the Leicester setup for this one.
They change at half-time.
They then change at half-time. So Castagna comes on for Perez, though. So I'll work out the shape, in a second or two. And then from there, they also keep Vardy on the bench all the way through, Paddy. And for me, that's I think that they've decided to hold a couple back for the game against Liverpool, and Didi and Vardy are the main two in there.
Yeah, and you sort of can't blame them for it if you're a Leicester fan and you're looking at that on paper. The two games, City away and Liverpool at home, you'd have to back yourself Liverpool at home. That's the most winnable out of the two. I think Vardy had a bit of a hamstring was a problem against us. He doesn't take a penalty, does he, at the end? So whether that's even more, whether he's carrying a knock and he's just thought, depending on how the game's going, I might bring him on, but obviously with him scoring 3 goals, he might have thought it's not necessary, and then we'll save him.
That's exactly what he said, but sorry to interrupt. He said Vardy had the hamstring. He almost said, I don't know why I put him on the bench.
Yeah.
He said he had a hamstring. I just did not want to use him at all.
Yeah, it's probably the 9 sub thing, isn't it? The manager's probably just trying to fill benches, but yeah, I think they will look at it as a more winnable game against us, and I think they'd be right to. I think their fans will be bang up for it. It is an easy place to go, and it tends to be a good atmosphere there. I think the cup thing will play a part in it. The fact that the kind of game that was, both supporters are at a bit, and a good game of football. And I think it's one with Rodgers. We touched on again in the last show about this, where he's sort of, although he's quite, he's done a very good job there. He's sort of quietly hanging on in there, and he's just doing enough. He sold in interviews after the game against us. He sold it as sort of a heroic, defeat in a way, when it was really, if they fell apart, really. They had that game won at half time, and they allowed Liverpool to get back into it, and they allowed us to make it a game that we wanted to, and end to end. And it wasn't this, we come to Anfield. It was Liverpool's second string side, but with a half of kids playing in that game. And I think he'll have done the same again yesterday against City. He'll have sold it as, these things happen. You come to the best teams, we've put up a good fight. The 4-0 down after 20 minutes, that's not, if that's Liverpool, if that's Man United, that's not acceptable, is it? But as we've said, as we've said before, that you feel like because it's Leicester, they sort of get away with it because no one's going to hold them to account. No one's going to turn around and be like, why are Leicester 4-0 down after 20 minutes? Because it is still little old Leicester, isn't it? When really, the 4th, 5th best team in the country. So he'll want to make things right against us, I'm sure. And I think it'll be a tough game.
He does Tielemans on 70, which again I suspect is with an eye on the idea that Tielemans is starting against us on the night of the 28th. He does Maddison for the duration, so Maddison gets the full 90. He does Iheanacho for the duration, he gets the full 90. Lookman gets the full 90. Harvey Barnes wasn't even on the bench for the game against City. Feels as though he could be out, Rob. I think what we could be looking at is a back three with Castagna, Amate and Vestergaard across that 3. Thomas one side, Albrighton the other. A couple of midfielders, probably Sumar and Tielemans, and then some combination of Vardy, Daka, Iheanacho, Maddison, Lookman, Perez maybe, but probably not up front. You're picking sort of 3 from that list of players I've just sort of given there as maybe one who's a runner, like Lookman, who look to run in behind and carry the ball, one who's creative, like Maddison, and then one who's all about playing on the shoulder, Vardy or Daka. That's what I think we'll face. Did
he play, what was the formation second half? Guardiola was actually full of praise about how Rodgers changed
it.
Yeah,
he goes a bit asymmetrical, so he basically plays Castagna as almost at right back and Albrighton at right wing back, Thomas at left wing back, and then Lookman ahead of Thomas. So it's like a back, one of those shapes where it's
2 up front,
it's a 3 and a 4. Maddison and Iheanacho are around the front, but it's not, and Lookman, he's got those 3 all on the pitch, but precisely where they're doing the bits, they're a bit fluid, I think.
People forget there is an option of a 3-5-2. We've got so used to thinking 3 at the back equals 3-4-3. You go back to the 90s, the default formation was 3-5-2, which gave you a lot in midfield. And I think the lesson he will have learned from the City and the Liverpool League Cup game is he's got to be more secure at the back because they're wide open. And by all accounts, they were more secure at the back in the second half. I suppose they couldn't be less secure. But so I think it'll be something that looks a bit like a 3-5-2, giving one of the five license to break to support.
I think it'll be Sumar, Tielemans and Maddison.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes. Well, where will Ndidi play then? Because he'll
Centre half.
Oh, you think he'll play centre half alongside Vestergaard and Castagna? Effectively,
possibly, or he might decide he can't be bothered with Vestergaard because he's not had much time with him yet, and he's a big lummox.
Vardy is the question whether he gambles on him, or he might go like, I just don't care, I'm going to play him into injury because he always gets a goal against Liverpool, or he thinks he gives us a good half hour.
On the thing I would say for Rodgers and for Leicester, current climate is 1st of Jan, 3 p.m. They've got Norwich at home.
Yeah, so
and you've got to win that with all your ambitions. You know, this is game 19. You've not played Liverpool or City yet. You've now played City twice. You're about to get Liverpool out the way. It almost feels to me as though once you get the Liverpool game out the way, if you're the sort of manager Rodgers is, you can say, right, season starts 1st of Jan. What you don't want to do, I would say, is flog someone to the point that they're then out for the whole of January when you need to actually put you know, they've got, just to run through it, you know, it's Leicester Norwich, then it's the Cup, then it's Leicester Burnley, they've got, and then Leicester Brighton. Yeah, if you're Leicester, you've got to be looking at that. How do we make sure we're getting 9 points from them? Liverpool's just Liverpool, but maybe I'm wrong.
You know, I think you're 100% right. I mean, even if you reverse the roles, if it was Salah with this, on the cusp of this hamstring injury, the hamstring injury bad enough that he couldn't take a penalty, by the way, Rodgers said. He didn't want to risk his hamstring on a penalty. I mean, that's saying something. And that he just put him on the bench for the sake of it. I don't think you jeopardise the next month of the season where he sounds like he's on the edge of a serious injury, but he's also on the edge of a recovery too. So you're absolutely, just to reiterate your point, I wouldn't risk him against Liverpool. And if you did, maybe it's 15 minutes, you know, at the end. But Rodgers is a bit mad, so you just don't know. I'm looking on paper. Leicester have got a lot of injuries here. Let's be right. That defence is very, very makeshift.
Yeah.
The midfield, the best of the midfield. The best of the midfield is in defence, Ndidi, and the next best of the midfield, the same is Tielemans. Has played a lot of football now quietly in the last week, so he's not going to be at his freshest if Liverpool want to leg them round. And Liverpool, mind you, are now rested, and not overly rested, but arguably, because it's not like being a 2-week COVID break. It's only been 5 or 6 days. So you know what? You know, I've looked at the betting on my compo bets. It's 4-1 the draw, something like 8-1 for Leicester to win. The bookies are fairly. Liverpool are something like 72%. It's not a straight, an absolute guarantee win, but we're strong favourites here.
I think I struggle to see a scenario where Liverpool don't win the game. I think given the condition of Leicester's squad, you know, you look at the injuries they've got, the state of the defence, the manner in which Rodgers sets his sides up. So, you know, without good defenders to bail him out, then his side struggle anyway. But I think there's a wider issue in that. Rob's just touched on it. Liverpool's first team have had best part of a week not playing footy, and Leicester's played yesterday
against Manchester City.
Against Man City. So we can talk about, well, he only had 70 and he didn't play, but their first 11 that they could choose played against us when we rested some of our lads.
Yeah.
So they've had that game, then another one, and then they're going to come, and Liverpool have had a week off.
48 hours, and 7 of those lads are going again from City. Have only had 48 hours.
Exactly.
Klopp wouldn't pick them.
No, exactly, and that's the issue for Leicester. And I think from a wider context issue, I can understand the Premier League wanting to carry on with fixtures, but I think there is a questionable integrity issue around asking the team to play 2 games in 2 days, and then another team who they're playing
haven't.
As I've had a week off. It's just one of them. It's just the way it's gone. They didn't have to pick that League Cup side, but they picked. And
Leeds didn't, Leeds might have been fully fit, flying, coming into the game at Anfield, but that doesn't happen either. And now Liverpool are absolutely...
And Liverpool are as rested as they could ever be for a Christmas fixture. So, just on that basis, regardless of the teams, the players, anything you'd say, they're going to win, because they haven't just ran a race yesterday. They've had a week off. And I think that combines with, oh, by the way, Liverpool are fucking great, and have been until they had the diddle where we lost our whole spine and still drew the game and could have won it. I just think we'll slap them everywhere, to be honest, and I think it'll be almost unfair, and I wouldn't be surprised if Klopp comes out after it and says, you can't treat that as a real game because it's not fair on them because they've played 2 days ago, and he goes big on trying to re-emphasise his point about what are you doing, why didn't you listen to us when we said you cancel this fixture and have a breather and blah blah blah. I think that I struggle to see how they, unless some mad turn of events, they have loads of luck and we batter them and can't score, or we turn up on our shite, which doesn't tend to happen anymore, then I just don't see how we don't win.
Just on that, I think the mad thing is, looking at the subs that he's made, the team he's picked, Vestergaard, Amati, Luke Thomas. Vestergaard and Amati haven't had that much footy. And then suddenly there has to go back-to-back. Not just back-to-back, by the way. They're not playing Norwich and Crystal Palace. They're playing Manchester City and Liverpool here. And they're asked suddenly to go back-to-back and pull that together. Dewsbury Hall, it's his first proper season playing Premier League footy. Suddenly he's getting lashed into back-to-back Manchester City, Liverpool in 48 hours. And then obviously, there was the one last midweek. I'm with you. Like, I can't see how... Genuinely, if they play a back 3 and Vestergaard's left-hand side of the 3, I don't see how he doesn't get mincemeat made out of him. And if they play a back 2 and Vestergaard's left-hand side of the 2, I don't see how he doesn't get mincemeat made out of him. And I like him as a player, and I thought he looked like he could do well for someone when he was at Southampton. But to be dropped into this now, I as you say, you are on the verge of saying this just isn't entirely fair.
No, it doesn't seem it. I mean, anything can happen, and we don't know, You look last week going to Tottenham, you'd back Liverpool to win all day, and then the day before there's three players out and you're thinking, is this going to go ahead? There's nothing to say that might not happen again. There might not be another diddle, but as it stands, you just look and think, I can't even... I'm looking at it thinking they just need a bit of encouragement to be beat, and that encouragement might be us scoring in the first 5 minutes and them going, save your legs, because we've got Norwich in 3 days. And there's 0 points anyone getting injured. There's 0 points, and I don't know. I feel sorry, like that Vestergaard's a good point. Is you look at the way Rodgers sets his sides up, and you look. I thought he was a decent player at Southampton, but it reminds me of when Lovren come to Liverpool, and Rodgers was like, "Yeah, go on, fill all them gaps." And he was like, "What? Come and stand in front of me." Yeah, I said, "I'm not going over there." And I feel that that's maybe happening for him a little bit again. And I agree with you. I think Liverpool will run them ragged.
Got to not give them any encouragement, Paddy. I think that's the big deal here. Liverpool have got to not give them any encouragement. Leicester, I think it's got to start. They've got to start strong and just effectively say, "You don't get out. This is your reality." What team are you going with in that context?
I think you go as strong as you can, really. I think, we've touched on there about how it's a benefit to us, that the fact that we've had a break. It also, I know it's not that long of a break, it's just a week, but, Liverpool can sometimes struggle when they've not played for a while and the full players. But I think going into Chelsea as well, I think you want your best team possible.
And it's a 5-day gap to Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. I think you want your best team possible, having rhythm and a performance.
5, sorry.
So I don't think there'd be too much change at all from what you'd go with. I think the only question I think you've got there is, I think with Thiago, isn't it? I think you'd imagine Fabinho and Van Dijk have had enough days training in them, coming back from COVID, that they should be fine to play. Van Dijk definitely, he puts him in first game of the season against Norwich. There's no questions if he's there, he's playing. And I'd imagine the same with Fabinho. I think with Thiago, I think it depends how long he's had it. It looks from pictures.
You don't need to risk him, is the thing I'd say, because I really want him to start Keita, and I'd expect to start Henderson.
Thiago starts with his cap on. And a little cheeky waistcoat. And he struts around. Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry I interrupted, but I agree.
Keita plays in the 4-0, doesn't he? I'm right in thinking that the year we win the league, it's Henderson, Wijnaldum and Keita plays really well that day. Yeah. And obviously he's coming off the back of a really good cameo against them in the cup game. I think he's got a decision to make. I could see that, to be honest. I could see him thinking, if we don't need to play Thiago, why would we? We don't need him struggling. So why bother with it? Especially where you'd imagine Chelsea goes that midfield. I think there's also a case for Chamberlain as well, to be honest. If there's the free midfield place, I think he's been playing quite well lately. So yeah, I think that's the only one really.
Question marks. So let's just say Alisson starts in goal, Trent right back, Tsimikas left back because we can't pick Robertson anyway, Van Dijk at the heart of the defence. Fabinho, unless there's something we don't know, you've got to presume starts. I think Henderson starts. He's just he had his 60 minutes against Leicester. Salah starts. question marks are of Firmino, Jota and Mane. Who do you think he goes for, Ben?
I think he plays Firmino and Mane, and I think he rests. I think Jota misses out. I think Firmino enjoys playing against these. I think the one thing they won't want is someone like him just dragging defenders, lads who aren't defenders as well, all over the pitch with his movements and his link and play. So I think he'll go Firmino. I think he'll go Keita or Chamberlain as the midfield, and I think it'll be Matip as the other centre half.
I'm not sure he can drop Jota, because if you take Mo Salah off the planet for a minute, Jota's the hottest striker in Europe at the moment. I don't think you can not start him. I think if there's a case for not starting him for tactical reasons, I think it's more at Chelsea than this one, in a sense, because Firmino is a bit more of a midfielder than Jota. So I think there's a case for that switch then. That's what I'm going to guess on, although I think Jota could start both. I think Keita is the shoe-in alongside Fabinho and Henderson, assuming Fabinho's hit the ground running up post-COVID. I think the subs would be preordained in that sense, in as much as Thiago could, because I think he'd like Thiago for Chelsea if he's fit. So I think you pull Keita off on 70 or 60 and you put Thiago on to get his legs back up to speed. And I think you possibly look somewhere along the line of Henderson dropping back into the 6 and Chamberlain coming on for Fabinho. That kind of move, I think, it's a nice set of options to pre-plan, I think, this game.
Centre half?
I think it's got to be Matip and Van Dijk, hasn't it? Although Konate really showed he can deal with what Leicester have to offer us, but I think it's Matip and Van Dijk.
Konate wouldn't surprise me. I missed that one before. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's got a tendency, Klopp, hasn't he, to just go with the player at one point and say, right, you're in now. And I think he has been impressive. I think his performance against Spurs was really good. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he looks at that and thinks, we've got a while until the big Champions League games, haven't we? Now it's February before that starts again. You think Matip's shown plenty of times, since we've had him, that he can just be dropped in. So if there was ever a period over the next couple of months where you think Konate's struggling a bit, Matip can just come in. It's not like he needs 4 or 5 to get into it. You can just drop him in. He's done that in derbies before and things in the past. So that wouldn't surprise me if Klopp thinks with Leicester's pace, whether they start Vardy or Iheanacho,
or Daka.
Just go with this lad. He's playing really well. He's confident. He's starting to really come into his own. I've felt, when someone looks just confident and looks like they're backing themselves now. He's not second guessing at all. And even in some of his early performances, when I think he did quite well, there's still that thing where he's getting dragged out and he's not sure whether to fully commit to a challenge. Or I think now he looks like he feels like he belongs here, and I think he knows he's a quality player, and he knows Liverpool now. He knows the system. He knows what he should be doing. So that wouldn't surprise me. And I think, and I agree with Rob as well on Jota. I think it's a hard sell to drop him. I know he has done before, and it's and I'm sure he's got complete faith in the manager Jota, and he'll trust his judgment, but he's playing that well at the moment, and we're talking about their defence and how much they're struggling, and talking about putting a few past them in and getting the game won and frightening the life out of them. If he starts Jota, Salah and Mane were almost likely to score, you'd say, for us. I think that's what you've got to go with. I think Firmino's not started, has he, in the league since he's come back from injury. It didn't look great against Tottenham. I know it was a bit of a mad game and it was fast paced, but he can sometimes struggle getting up to the speed. But I think if we're 3-0 up and there's half an hour to go, I think that'd be quite a nice one for Bobby to come on to and sort of just strut around and get back up to the pace of things, and then you've got a decision to make for Chelsea. But I think you've got to go Jota.
Okay, I think there's a chance Mane doesn't start one of the next two, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's Chelsea.
Do you not think with AFCON looming that it's just play them while you can, and fuck it?
I think he's flogging them.
I think he might be right, but I think that the flip side is I think he'll want to beat Chelsea, and I think he might think his best way to beat Chelsea is to have the movement of Jota off that flank rather than the direct run of Mane.
He's done it at Old Trafford twice, hasn't he?
He's done it at Old Trafford twice. Mane really is Mane and Robertson, to be fair, both Mane and Robertson, and I think there's mitigating circumstances around both. But in the home game when they go down to 10, both Mane and Robertson I think find it quite difficult, and I think there's a Chelsea thing where they quite like Azpilicueta, someone who loves one-on-one defending. Yeah. Just give me one-on-one defending. I've got to stop this fella. I'll just keep stopping him over and over. And I just wonder if the idea, instead of let it be a clear one-on-one battle, if you sort of see what I mean, a lad who's just going to float around a little bit might just appeal a tiny bit more against Chelsea, do them with movement rather than with directness.
You know what? Yeah, I
can see that if Robertson's fit. But Mane's so good defensively that you think
that's fair.
The only other possible thing.
That's very fair, very, very fair indeed. And then there is also the idea that they're going to go away for AFCON anyway. So but ultimately, I think that genuinely, I understand the flog them point, but I think we're sort of a bit past that bit. We've just got 2 games to win.
Yeah.
If you sort of see what I mean, what's the thing that's most likely to win me the game, rather than I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to exhaust
You're going away, are you, for a month?
Yeah.
So how much this then?
Yeah.
Well, quite.
I think the manager's a bit more professional, but I could be wrong.
There is a certain sense, though, that of getting them back into rhythm for Chelsea by picking them against Leicester. I mean, Mane and Salah now haven't kicked a ball since Tottenham, right? It's quietly 9-ish days. So there's a case for saying, hang on, I don't want it to be 2 weeks since 2.5 weeks since Mane's played.
So I would go with Mane, Jota, and Salah, which is a bit hard lines on Firmino, but the idea of Firmino to be introduced, and I take your point about movements and all that, but I think he'll think, well, these lads can. I mean, it's a Martin and Didi Vestergaard for fuck's sake. I think they'll think we can get something out of that regardless. But I think, as I say, the one I think the curveball might be that Mane does not start against Chelsea, and everyone will be shocked, not least because of the logic of, well, you've got them, surely you play them. Whereas I think that he might think a little bit different, and that might also include Tuchel. All right then, move forward. Scratch the other games on the 28th. Palace obviously against Norwich. It's 3 points that Palace have to get. Spurs versus Tottenham. I'm not enjoying watching Tottenham enjoy themselves, to be quite honest with you, and I'd like it to stop soon. Southampton seems a good place for that to happen. Watford versus West Ham. West Ham suddenly seem goosed, but no one's seen Watford kick a ball in what feels like 5 years. Couldn't even list you 8 players who play for them, other than the fact that they've got about 40 professionals and seemingly still couldn't get a squad out due to COVID. Questions should be asked.
Vote of Dennis.
They've got so many players, and yet they are all interchangeable.
Yeah.
Kiko Femenia remains a Watford footballer, even though he literally, if he walked into the studio right now, I'd think he's been sent in on work experience to do the cameras.
Who put the ball in the blue shite net?
Kiko Femenia. We'll end where we started. Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, Manchester City. Just very quickly, it just doesn't feel like 2 easy games, Paddy, when you actually see them written down like that. Brentford will get battered, but they will factor getting battered into their team talk, team selection. Whole outlook will be, we will get battered for long periods, but I get the impression that ground, that set of players, it loved simply beating Watford. It loved landing one on Arsenal. It loved a 3-3 against Liverpool. It even loved a manful 1-0 defeat against Chelsea when they were the better side and they could clap them off. I think they will be desperate for some Christmas cheer against Manchester City.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I know you mean battered in terms of, periods in the game, but I think I'm right in saying they haven't been actually battered scoreline-wise all season, especially at their place as well. So whilst I was looking at that fixture, I did think, it could go 2 ways. It'll either be literally like after 4 or 5-0, or it'd be a really tough game for City. I'm starting to think now, I think if City win, I don't think it is by a high scoreline. I think they're going to have to really work for it because everyone has had to there, all season. I think, they've had a few issues, haven't they? But, with Ivan Toney back now, they were unlucky yesterday against Brighton. They did come back into that game. I think it'd be a tough one for City. I would back them to win it. I would back City to win it. It won't be easy at all though, and it's sort of a nice one for us, I think, to have a look at City and think, to sort of get a bit of hope in terms of if they've struggled here like this at Brentford, what can other sides do? I think they'll win. But no, it's no battle of laughs unless you're a Brentford fan, because they're having a great time.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm looking at the 3 fixtures that us, City and Chelsea have got are all similar hardnesses for different reasons. I think they're, although we're confident about Leicester, I think they'll be looking at that and going, at the end of the day, Leicester are, you said earlier, the 5th best team in the country. That's not an ideal fixture to go to their ground. Would we rather go to Leicester than Brentford? I think yes, I would actually. Just right now I would, but not normally. And Chelsea are at Brighton. Again, that's a hard one. Brighton are not dissimilar to
Chelsea
Brentford.
are at home, but I don't think it makes much odds. If anything, I actually think that makes it harder for Chelsea because this is the big problem they've got. I think is going to be, as Ben said before, it wouldn't surprise you if they had not just 3-0 at home by now until the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me if they had 3-0 at home by now until the end of March.
No, and Brighton don't give up chances that readily when they're focused. So yeah, it's an interesting day actually, because it could break for one or two of the teams. One of us could be really sitting there going, oh, fucking hell, we've been pulled away from more.
Yeah, I think City will be all right against Brentford.
The big thing I think City have got against Brentford, Ben, which we didn't have, not really, and Chelsea had a bit of, is the video. The one thing that City can do beforehand is go, you know what these did to Liverpool? Look at it, watch it, take it all in. This is what's going to come. For better or worse, this is what's going to come. Look at all these chances Liverpool had early where they didn't counter-attack well enough. If you counter-attack well enough, you'll break this game apart. And I think that's the big boost that City have got that we didn't have. They've got the warnings.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they'll be all right, to be honest. I think you're right. They've done a bit of a number on us. in the way that they scored the goals and the way they overloaded down Trent's side a little bit. I just think City have got too much for them. I understand. I can see that, you know, I'm as game as the next man for a big crowd, and then getting dragged down to a level, volleyed all over the pitch and beat 1-0. Fucking let's bring it on, you know what I mean? But I just don't see it. Whereas Brighton are very good, I think, quietly very good. I think Potter's excellent. I think if I was in charge at Liverpool, I'd be quietly in his ear saying, don't go nowhere else. You know, you'd thought of very highly. You know, don't go anywhere else to rule yourself out of a future job at Anfield is what I'd be saying, because I think he's excellent and I think he sets his team up very well. They're very difficult to beat. They're very, very difficult for a top team to play. Do you know what I mean? And it's
yes, I do.
In the way that he asks the same questions as other top teams get asked by other top teams, you know what I mean?
No, very much so. Like I think it would almost suit him to only play the top 8.
Yeah.
Like I think if he said if there was a league of just the top 8 and they were the 9th, I think he'd say we'll finish 6th in this league.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. Even with the current crop of players, he'd go, "What we just played? You know, we play all these 4 times. We'll finish 6th in this league."
Yeah, because I think he's very good at picking weaknesses in otherwise unbelievable strength. You know, when we played them, they were very good at pulling us apart and finding a weakness and frustrating and hitting on the break, and I'd back them to get something there, I think. You know, it's going to be a tough game for Chelsea anyway. Put it that way.
They love a draw, don't they? You know.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the first win since September, and they've only lost 3 in that time. They've drawn all the others. So if you're looking at Chelsea, thinking, you know,
Chelsea look like
be surprised if
draws,
they have a few 0-0s at home now. It's Brighton's the one where you think, well, that'll be one of them, because as everyone said, they're well set up. They love a draw. You could see them getting out with a point.
Conceding less than a goal.
If I was Potter, I'd just say just don't make mistakes, because Chelsea, to me, look, they're a team that they've got enough quality that if you make mistakes, they'll get their goals and they'll win. Villa was absolutely that yesterday. Chelsea didn't deserve those points, but Villa just made a couple.
Even Leeds, a couple of weeks earlier, wasn't it? They got away with that one with Leeds giving away daft penalties and things, and that could have been another draw or defeat if that hadn't been for Leeds' own doing.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent stuff. It's been the Anfield Wrap, but thank you very much to Paddy Fitzsimons, Rob Gutmann and Ben Johnson for making their way into the studio on this. It is a bank holiday Monday. It is definitely still Monday. Tuesday to come, Liverpool go to Leicester. We'll have team talk. If you subscribe to the Anfield Wrap to come, there'll be a preview as well if you subscribe to the Anfield Wrap as well. And then everything you need post-match. It's a massive, massive game on Tuesday night for the Reds. And broadly speaking, in Ben Johnson's camp, I think if it goes a certain way, Liverpool will absolutely whack them. And afterwards we can have a big chat about why it wasn't fair with smiles on our faces.